Hey everyone, we're back.
Jerome! Oh, thank God you're here. Oh man, I've been running all over town trying to get some of these apartment deals, dude.
Bro, how's it going, man?
Oh, so glad you're back. It's going great, except for I have a challenge.
What is it?
You only taught me one of the 5 ways to make money doing these apartment deals. I need to know the other 4.
Bro, I got your back.
My man, let's do this. What's up, clever investors? Welcome back. Sperber here with Jerome Maldonado, the man, the myth, the legend, the king of building and monetizing and becoming a billionaire doing apartment buildings. Look, if you want to be a billionaire doing apartment buildings like this guy, pay attention to this video, because in this one, this is the 3-part series. This is the 3rd part. If you haven't watched the other 2, I'll put a link down in the description down below. You're going to want to watch those 2 because he is showing us how to build apartment buildings from the ground up, and he's teaching us 5 ways to monetize these deals. He's making an insane amount of money doing this. This is my favorite apartment strategy, and he's doing this for free. So if you get a lot of value from this, don't forget to smash the like button and make sure you follow this guy. But I'm going to step out of the way because you got a ton to cover.
A lot of information.
In the first video, we covered what?
So we covered how to get the land and how you actually retain it and purchase it and then entitle it. And that was the first way to make money, was how to entitle the land and generate capital, equity interest in
by getting the raw land,
by getting the raw land, getting it ready to go, the entitlement process.
And then in the second video, we started
explaining exactly how the entitlement process actually works step by step, all the technical aspects of like what do you build, why do you build it, how we actually make everything that we're going to talk about here on the money end come into fruition. And so we build it up to this. Now the money part, like this stuff now is our 3rd video, but really this stuff is what we do first before we even start any apartment build.
Got it. So you need to understand all 3 stages, but this is what you look at first to make sure you're going to go put in the work on the other ones.
Exactly. So everything that we covered on the first 2 videos explains it kind of step by step as to what the process actually is when you actually build and develop and entitle the land and then build the product. But this is what we actually look at to make sure that what we're doing is even financially viable. And then we build our goals. So we're reverse engineering is what we're doing.
Got it. And look, this video is going to be a little bit longer because we're talking about making big money. So this is, you actually have an event that you open this up. It takes days going through just what he's about to teach you. So this is like a condensed version.
Yes.
You actually have the events that open all this stuff up. So pay attention if you're into this stuff. I'm going to step out of the frame. I'm still might ask you some questions just to clarify some things, but I'm going to let you go because you're like the maestro when it comes to this stuff.
Cool. So not the billionaire yet, but we're working in that direction. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of this stuff going on right now. So thank you, Cody, for the warm welcome and interest of what we're doing in our multifamily space. And it is a little bit unique in comparison to what regular syndicators are doing with what's called value add properties. And so I'm not going to go through all of that stuff because we've covered that in the first 2 videos. So if you haven't watched video number 1 and 2, we're going to recommend those videos at the end of this video, where you can click and watch video number 1 and 2. Now let's get into the other 4 ways that we actually generate income through multifamily. The first way was through the entitlements of the land, creating value in the land and doubling the value of that land just through the entitlement process, which is getting permits, engineering, architecture, and zoning, and making sure that you're build ready to be able to submit those plans for permits to go in and do this right here. Now, one thing that's super important to know before you guys even consider doing this is that there's what's called a pro forma. And in the proformas, in regular value add properties, I want to compare this to what we do with new build, because proformas in multifamily value add, meaning that you buy something that's already existing, you add value to it. One of the biggest things is being able to understand that proformas in the value add space are worth absolutely 0 to me, because they tell you what the projected rents are down the road. And we don't care about what the projected rents are down the road in value add. All we care is what they're worth today. And so proformas on new constructions are absolutely everything. So where I get this information, these numbers and everything I'm going through today is actually from the multifamily brokers and our property management companies, which I talked about in our prior video. And so what's really important to understand is the pro formas are the basis of everything that we use for banking, everything that we use for underwriting the deal, and everything that we're using to go over the numbers that we're looking at today. And so it tells us what the real market values are, the real market values in rent, the real market values of resale, and everything that needs to be built and that we're short of in that area. So we go to the multifamily broker and we say, okay, what do you recommend that we build in this area? And they tell us we need a 50% mix of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, or a 30% 3 bedrooms. We need a 40% of 2 bedrooms and 30% of 1 bedroom units. And so we don't go in and say, oh, my name's Jerome, I think this area needs, and I don't play guessing games with it. I actually go to the professionals that have data, and they tell me exactly what's needed, and then I don't reinvent the wheel. I just go in and fulfill the current need for what needs to be built in that area. So super simple. So some of you guys that have built before, you guys went out, built 4-plex, a 12-plex, a 20-plex, or whatever it is, you can get away with that in smaller segments of real estate. This stuff, you can't, because if you build a 200+ unit apartment complex in the wrong area that doesn't have a need, and you build it out wrong, you're gonna have a really tough time filling that product. So the numbers that I go over today are based on actual current market value numbers, and I want to share those with you today, because most people are sitting back going, okay, Jerome, I understand what you're talking about and that there's money in it, but where do the numbers come from? How do I know that at the end of all of this craziness of building that there's a profit? And so the whole point of this today, which I'm going to walk you through and explain the 4 ways to make money right at the end of this video, I'm going to lead you through. So follow me here, because this information is extremely dry. It's like you're going back to 8th grade math, and I'm going to explain it to you in layman terms so that you understand it, but loaded and packed with money and financial gains that will change your life if you understand this. You might have to go back, #repeat, and watch this 2, 3, 4, even 5 times to understand everything that I'm talking about today. But if you do, once you have the understanding of how this actually works on a financial end, you can profit from it immensely. So let's get started. Now, we have a 201 unit apartment complex, okay? And this is actually a real deal that I'm doing right now that I'm building over on West Camelback in Phoenix. For those of you guys who know that area, this is right off the 60. West Camelback, 41st Street, and it's a 201 unit, which actually just 3 days ago turned to a 208 unit, so it actually raised the value for us by over $1 million, which is pretty damn cool. And so 201 units, the average unit mix, we have some units that are 650 square feet, some of them that are 850 square feet, and our average unit mix is 750 square feet on this property. So if you do a 201 multiplied by 750, that's 150,750 square feet. Okay, that's where we get the square footage. Now, why is that important? Because your vertical build, that means everything from the dirt work coming up from the foundation, vertical construction to finished shingles, paint, exterior, brick, facade, everything, your vertical build, your cost at this is going to be someplace in the neighborhood of about $200 a square foot. Now, I will tell you guys, I'm building these things out at about $165 a square foot, even with the inflated values of the market right now. But if you hire a general contractor, you don't know exactly what you're doing, I want to give you guys realistic expectations. I'm probably making significantly more than what I'm showing here on this example, but if you went out and you just hired a retail general contractor, what is this value to you? What should you expect in real terms of revenue and returns hiring a general contractor? So let's say that you go out, you hire a Class A general contractor, meaning the best of general contractors in your area. You spend $200 a square foot building this thing out at $150,000. My build cost for that is going to be $30,140,000. Okay, we'll edit that. So our build cost is going to be.
We're not editing that. We're leaving that in.
Okay, we'll leave it in. We'll show my real stumbles. When I underwrite these things, ladies and gentlemen, understand that this is real math, these are real numbers. And one of the biggest things is I have to go through these sometimes 5 times just for little tiny edits. And it's normal because we're human, right? And I'm not running these on a regular spreadsheet. I'm a little bit old school, you know, I'm almost 50. And so I sit down, I still do things on paper. And then I run them through a spreadsheet. We do have data sheets that underwrite these things for us, but I like doing it old school. I want to see and feel the numbers. So nonetheless, $30,140,000 to build this thing out, okay? So $30,140,000, okay, to build this thing out. Now, land cost for this right here actually cost us $2.6 million, but on average, we got a really hell of a deal on this. It was somebody who owned this property back in the 1960s. So if you go in fair market value, we definitely bought this under fair market value, is about $4 million. So we picked up the land at 2.6, but let's say you go in, you don't find that sweet deal that we found, and we come in and we pay $4 million for this land, okay? So we pay $4 million for the land. Now, in order to entitle this land, we talked about this in video number 2. In order to entitle this land, I got architects, I got engineers, I got surveyors. I have to pay consulting fees. I got to pay the zoning and municipality to be able to get this thing out of the ground. How much does that cost? Okay, 80 grand here, the 20 grand there, 50,000 there, and by the time you're done between all engineers, architects and engineers, your soft costs are going to be someplace right around $500,000 to pull this out of the ground. Okay, so you're going to put about 500K into soft costs. Now, anytime you build something, in video number 1 and 2, I talked about the potential of additional cost for offsite development. What this is you put 201 units in and you put it in on a busy corridor, busy road. There might have to be a turning lane to be able to so you don't slow traffic down, to be able to merge. And so you might have $500,000 in roadway fees or something similar to that for just offsite improvements. So we'll always budget for a little bit of offsite improvements, not knowing exactly what those consist of when we're first underwriting the deal. So I'll put in about another $500,000 in offsite improvements. Now, this is a big due diligence deal right here because we want to make sure that that 500 doesn't turn into 5 million. And believe you me, if you're redoing an entire roadway, it can turn into $5 million really quick. So when we're underwriting a deal, we go in and we sit down with the municipalities. We talk to them about off-site work. We talk to the traffic engineers who actually do traffic studies to see what type of effect and impact this is going to your property is going to have on the development and the roadways there. So we'll go in and we'll make sure that we mitigate this risk early on. If this is any more expensive than $500,000 in our budget, where that comes in is we discount the land, okay? So let's say it was gonna be $2 million. We go back and say, look, we can't make this deal go unless this land is gonna be $2.8 million for sake of example. So I'll exhaust some of that expense through my land cost. Now, in this site that we're doing right now, it's not even going to cost us $500,000, but I'm going to underwrite that just in case there's some unforeseen circumstances that may happen, okay? Now, one of the big things that people forget to do when they're expensing a deal is they forget to go in and expense debt. Money costs money to loan on. It's just like our Federal Reserve, right? Run by our central banks. You go out, lends our money to our federal government. Our government sends it out and distributes it to the world. And our federal government pays the Federal Reserve back a percentage rate. How they pay that money back is through you guys, your taxes. And so when we are looking at these deals, we're borrowing money at a percentage, okay? Now, there's 2 debts to service. There's one on the land and one on the build. Now, one of the things that makes our business model so unique is the fact of how we actually raise the capital to do this. Most value-add multifamily people, they go in and they buy an asset, let's say it's $30 million. They have to go in and they have to raise, if it's like an 80% loan to value, they have to raise 20% of that. That's a $6 million raise for a $30 million asset, which is, this is less than half of what this whole development cost us. And so with that said, what is this cost? What is the value of this? And so 201 units, what our multifamily brokers told us is it's worth in excess of $300,000 per door with current rent rates based on a 5 cap, okay? 5% cap rate, okay? Now, for those of you guys who don't know what a cap rate is, that's the amount of money, the amount of revenue that is made if you paid cash for this asset after all expenses have been paid out. So all of your expenses, once all your management fees, your repairs, your monthly maintenance, and all that stuff is paid, That 5% is what you would make as revenue at the end of stabilization. So based on the cap rate and the price per unit, that property is worth someplace about $300,000. So based on $300,000, this property right here is worth $60,300,000. So the total value is $60 million. $60,300,000. Okay, now, so when I'm talking about the debt service, you guys understand what I'm taking these numbers off of. So the land debt service is $4 million. Now, what I do, and this is really cool, is we go in, we raise $4 million. So instead of going in, and if I had to put an 80% LTV on that, that's $12 million that I would normally have to raise to buy this building. Now I go in and I just raise $4 million. So that's a fourth of what I would have to raise otherwise. I raise $4 million, I pay for the land. Now my debt service on the $4 million for 1 year, because that's gonna take me at least 1 year to get permits on that project, sometimes slightly longer, is gonna be $600,000 based on a 15% return. So if you pay your investors a premium, on average, we pay between 10 and 15%, but let's say we give them all of it. Let's say we give them all the 15%. That 15% is gonna cost you $600,000. So the debt service on the land, $600K. Okay? Now, when we get the land, that 1 year, that cost, that makes this land now worth $8 million. That's what we talked about in the last video, or thereabouts. And so you're gonna double the value of the land once this is permit ready, because a contractor can go in and they call it shovel ready, because you can go in with a tractor or a shovel, start turning dirt and start building. And so the value of time for a contractor is invaluable. So that instantly makes this property worth immensely more, okay? Now, once we do that, if we decide we want to raise capital to go out and build this entire building, we go in and we retain a construction loan. And once you have the entitlements, a set of blueprints, a set of plans, you go to the bank and you take that set of plans to them. Now they have a tangible item that they can appraise and they can bring value to. So the bank goes in and they say, yes, Jerome, this building will be worth $60 million. Now, Jerome, what's it gonna cost you to actually build this? And they're gonna give you a loan based on loan to cost. And the loan to cost is the loan, a percentage of the loan based on what it costs to build that property. And typically they'll give you a 75 to 80% loan to cost. Now, when you go in and you do this, one of the big things, and I didn't put this in here, but this is such valuable information, Cody. I'm just gonna pull up my calculator and do it organically, if that's okay, because this is really important information. So when you go in and let's say you do a loan to cost to service this debt, what's gonna end up happening is it's really gonna cost you about $30 million to build this property out, right? Now, if you add the land in there, that's about $34 million, plus you add the debt of service, it's gonna be closer to about $35 million to be able to go out and build it out. But the bank, at the end of the day, they want this asset finished, because if they're lending you 80% or even 75% of it, they are more invested in this property than you yourself are. Okay, so at the end of the day, they want to know that you're a good person, you're going to pay them back, that you're not going to go out and smuggle away their money and go launder their money away. But what they really want to know is, does this asset hold the value they need upon completion of construction to really move the needle for them, to make it worth them lending you the money? And that's how you get what's called unsecured debt, which is a no recourse loan, okay? Which means that if you default on it, there's no recourse to you unless there's fraudulent activity. Now, when you do this, now remember guys, this is loaded. This is like PhD level mathematics right here. So if I'm losing you here, get up, shake yourself off, take a drink of water, and let's rekindle the brain, and let's get right back at it, okay? Take a breath, just run in a circle, okay? Because this is PhD stuff here, guys. This isn't little boy stuff. This is like PhD level math right here, okay? I'm teaching you guys how to make hundreds of millions or billions of dollars doing this stuff. This is the track that we're actually on right here. So now, loan to value. I'm gonna put this in a nutshell. The banks basically want you to finish the build, okay? So people go, well, Jerome, if I'm only gonna get $30 million, I'm gonna 80% of that and this and that, I have to raise all kinds of capital. No, you don't. Here's how banks work. And banks, they want you to complete the build. So if you know you can build it for $30 million and you have $5 million that you have to be able to purchase the land and service the debt, that's $35 million. You have a building that's $60 million. Now, the retail construction of that is typically going to be about 90% of the entire value. Okay, now there's a whole entire course all in itself of how to reverse engineer the build cost step by step, from everything from the dirt work to the drywall to the paint to the shingles on the roof and all the way, and that's a loaded course in and in itself. I can spend a full day on that alone. So I'm just going to give you the abbreviated version. So if you go in, the retail cost is 90% of that, and you only need $35 million to build it. The bank is willing to give you 80% loan to cost to build it. So if you take $60 million times 0.90, that's $54 million that the bank would be willing to give you. Now, here's how those numbers break down. Let's say it takes 80% to build it, but then the bank's going to come in and they say, we want this building done. Have you considered contingency costs? And for those of you guys who know what contingency costs are, it's costs that are unforeseen, unexpected costs that have to be finished to fulfill the finished product that the banks have. So the bank, before you close on this loan, they ask you, are you sure that these are all your expenses? Have you taken everything into consideration? They themselves will have their construction team underwrite it. You'll underwrite it. Your contractor will underwrite it. They'll make you provide the bids from your contractor to verify your costs. So this takes a little bit of sophistication from the person, the general partner, the person that's the primary, which would be me, that has the experience to do it. I underwrite it. The contractor underwrites it. Their construction team underwrites it. Then the loan underwriter himself underwrites it. So you have 4 people that are staring at your numbers. And now they all sit back and they're checking boxes. They've taken everything in consideration. We're going to require you guys to take a 10 or 15% contingency on top of your construction cost. Now, if we're an 80% loan to value, just remember that just gives you a 5% spread over your contingency costs. And I've just given you guys construction costs of $200 per square foot to build this. Now, if you guys remember our business model, we're doing a Class A build, low amenities, so we don't have a lot of cost to build swimming pools, clubhouses, gyms, or any of that stuff. It's just the cost to build out the property itself without a lot of amenities. So our build cost is extremely low. Okay, so $54 million, we don't need $54 million to build this out. We need the $30 million, we need the $4 million, the $6 million, that's $35 million. Let's call it $40 million so that we're safe and we have more than we need to pay for the land, pay for the construction loan, and pay for all of our debt service along with that. Now, there is some additional debt service because we have to service the debt of this loan, and it's going to take us at least 18 months to build out this product if everything goes perfect. So let's say, for example, in today's day and age, we're paying 7% interest on that money. Now, you only get charged the interest as this escalates. You're not going to get $30 million out of the bank all in one draw. But let's say you did, and it took you 18 months to build it, all $30 million is in your bank account, and you service that at 7% interest. That's $3.2 million to build that house, to build this apartment complex in debt service. Okay, now, I'm going to include about $2 million in miscellaneous costs here. Okay, on a project this size, you're going to have some unforeseen expenses. Okay, so $2 million.
Jerome, I'm just going to just clarify something.
Sure.
The whole point of you going in that rant is, look, it's worth 60. The bank's willing to loan 54 or whatever that is.
Yep.
But we know our real numbers are somewhere right around here.
Correct.
Right? What you're saying to us is that you're going to submit to the bank $40 or $45 million worth of build cost, so that way when they give you the 80% of it,
yes,
it's a higher number.
It is.
It's a higher number. So you don't want to be super tight estimating with the bank. And I just went through this when I was building my personal residence. I estimated it, or my contractor estimated that it would cost $2 million to build, but it cost $3.5 million. Well, the bank only lent me off the $2 million.
So you had to fund the rest.
I had to fund the rest in cash. And so it was
like,
I was so frustrated. I'm like, how did you misestimate? And he goes, COVID, supply chain. And I'm like, so now I'm getting screwed because I didn't submit the right thing to the bank.
I did the same thing in 2008. That's what almost killed us in 2008.
So this
That's why
is
we
really
almost
smart. That is the key is
The retail value.
Is knowing that they'll lend 90% of this
and
up to that.
You know what it is that we all function out of conservative nature because we feel that less is more safe, right? So that if we make the numbers smaller, in most people's brains, we feel like it's just a safer investment.
Yeah.
In this type of asset class, I always tell people more is better because more is safer. And so you want to have more money. The banks want to give you more money because if you don't have it and your loan is closed, you have to service the rest of the money to finish the asset.
Too hard.
The bank
You'd be
does not.
scrambling to raise money.
You'll kill yourself.
Yeah,
this is
so
crazy.
this
This is why people jump off bridges.
I love this, man. This is clutch.
So the whole thing is that the way we've been doing this in the past, now this is the first time that we're starting to raise investment capital for the asset itself. We've never give up equity, Cody. We just don't give up equity because we don't have to. Because that little key component that you just talked about right here is a key element to how we actually finance our builds. And so what we'll end up doing is we come in with this $60 million and a $50 million build that costs us really $35 to do. We're able to go in, we're able to exit out all investors right here at the land when we refinance, and then we come in with just institutional bank money and no investors, and we retain 100% of the equity in our builds. Now, because we retain 100% of the equity in our builds, we have options. I can go sit back and go, hey Cody, I don't want to hire a superintendent. You've been a great guy. I just love what you're doing. I'll give you 5% of this build if all you do is you run the construction management for me, and you'll retain 5% for sake of example. Or if you have investors that you come in and they're advocating for what you're doing and they want to be able to park their money with you and do this, then we can give them a small percentage of equity in it and still retain the majority of equity. And we have a ton of options. So like where you run an educational platform, I run an educational platform for investors and people that want to come in and be a part of this, we can just slice off a sliver of some of that equity to give to them to be a part of what we're doing, but still retain the mass majority of equity.
How much faster you're building wealth too.
Oh, it's crazy.
You know, if you're the GPLP and you're raising money, you have to give up 50, 60% to investors.
Yeah.
You got to do a lot more projects.
Yeah.
This, you could
10
do
times.
half as many.
Yep.
And
have just as much value. Yeah. Because if you're doing value add stuff and you're syndicating, you're holding on to maybe 30% if you're lucky, if you're investing some of your own capital, but you might only be holding on to 15, 20%, you know? And so with this, even if you gave away 25%, you still retain 75% of the equity in your asset, which is unbelievable, you know? So the only other one you have in it is the bank.
Take us home, Jerome.
Okay, cool. So let me take it home for you guys. So total cost, we add up all of these numbers. We take our 30 million, our 4 million, our $500,000 for soft costs, $500,000 for off-site costs, our debt service here, our debt service for the land right here, our debt service on this to build it right there, and then just miscellaneous costs of a couple $1 million that you may land up needing. And so all in to this entire project, you're going to be about $40,900,000 in to build this project, okay? So you're all cost in, you're $40 million. Okay, this is all in. This is your total cost in. Now, here's what's cool. This is the punchline, ladies and gentlemen. You guys can all laugh after you guys see this because you laugh all the way to the bank, and this is what's pretty cool. I've been extremely conservative with these numbers because I want to be able to show you guys realistic values. If you go out, this is your first one, you make a bunch of mistakes, and you do this entirely wrong, but you still hit this benchmark based on the numbers that I gave you guys, you'll still make an incredible profit, and here's why. Let's say that you go in and you have your total value $60 million. You're all in at $40,900,000. So my equity standpoint is $19,360,000. So $19,360K. Now, let's say that we have just a modest 5 cap. Now with interest rates going up, cap rates have to go up as well. But if we go out and we do a cash out refi, okay, we stabilize the asset, the property's completely done, Cody. It's completely finished. We have it rented. We have a property management company, the same way I talked about in video number 2, how we onboard our property management company early. The property management company stabilizes this asset. 6 months before we're finished building it, we already have tenants in it. And so we come in, we stabilize the asset. A few months after we're actually completed full construction of this, we go out and we tell the bank, hey, we want a 75% loan to value. And I'll usually do 75% instead of 80%, so I have a little bit more of what I call cash on cash return. So I have monthly revenue, passive residual income. And so if I just go out based on a 75% LTV, okay, 75% loan to value, I take 75% of my equity. Now, if I go out and I refinance this based on a 75% LTV and I just retain 25%, I have, based on my equity, $4,285,000 that I can finance out of the project the second I'm done and it's stabilized, tax-free. $4,285,000. $285,000. That's my cash out refinance. What's beautiful about that, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm still retaining 25% of the equity. The bank goes in, takes the other 75% based on this value right here, okay? This becomes our new value. This is what the property worth. Now, what's been happening, because rent rates have been going up, Cody, is what's been really cool is we go in and we underwrite these, and then when we get to the end of construction, they've went up more and more. So this asset that was worth $60 million might be worth $80 million at the end of construction. That cash out refi potentially could be worth more just based on rent rates alone. And so if rents continue to get pushed, the value of your property continues to go up, okay? And so, well, I can come out of that with $4,285,000. That's my money. That goes straight into my Jerome Maldonado bank account. Goes into an LLC, but it goes essentially into our bank account. Now we can go back in, and the next time we do this, I don't even have to bring in investors. If I want to use my own capital, I can, and I can do this without any investors. And I pay no taxes on that. So that's really freaking cool, because it's a loan.
You're pulling out debt.
Debt, yep, and you're servicing that debt. Now the property is paying for that debt in the percentage of what they're making. So what's really cool about this is that you still retained 25% of the equity in here. So now you have a 5% cap rate that you get to take. Now, on the full amount of a 5% cap rate on this full amount, Cody, that's over $3 million in cash flow. So out of that $3 million, you still have to service your debt on that property. So once you service that debt, 25% of that still goes to you. So your cash on cash return that you get month after month for the rest of your life, just based on that 5% cap rate, is over $753,000 a year. So you're gonna make just over $60,000 a month in passive residual income, just for owning that property. So that's $750K per year. Okay, that's just based on your 25% equity that you've retained in that property.
Which is how much? How much equity are we keeping?
So your equity is $19,360,000.
But you're keeping 25% of it.
So you're keeping 25% of it. Okay, so you get that 5 cap. So let me change this. This right here is going to be based on your 25%. So this is $750,000 right here per year. But the property actually makes $3,015,000 a year just based on that cap rate. So $3,015,000 per year. You go back, you service your debt, and the 25% retention that you get to keep is $750,000 per year in passive residual income. Now, that's the fourth way. Now, there's a fifth way that's magical, that you generate capital. It's more of a cash savings than it is a way that you generate capital, but any cash saved is money earned, right? So there's what's called cost segregation. And one of the biggest things that I love about cost segregation is the fact that you can depreciate an asset. And over the course of 5 years, you can depreciate 100% of that asset minus the land. So you could take this value right here, $60 million. You take the land value, which is $4 million. You have $56 million left after the land value, and you can write that off over the course of 5 years. But even if you write it off over the course of 5 years, that $56 million, that tax depreciation never expires. So if it takes you the rest of your life to generate $56 million of earned income and taxable income, you'll never have to pay federal income taxes again legally. And the reason that works is because this is how the government incentivizes developers for going out and building. Because the federal government has tried to build before and they proved to us that they can't do it and they're horrible developers. So they'll give developers an incentive and investors an incentive to come in and build by giving them the ability to depreciate the asset all the way down to zero. As long as you never sell this asset, you can depreciate that indefinitely and have those tax write-offs for the rest of their lives.
Dude. No big deal. Not only are you going to pocket $4.2 million, you're going to make $750K a year tax-free.
Forever.
You're going to own this amazing asset that down the road, you build enough of these, like let's say you build 10, 15 of these over your career.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're done. And you're just sitting back, living the good life, and some massive family office or some big fund is going to come in and go, Jerome, you're my best friend. Can I buy all your stuff all at once? Here's another $1 billion or whatever. And you're going to be like, cool. Just more.
Just more money.
Yeah, and as your tenants pay this off, your net worth's just going through the roof.
Goes up. Keeps going up.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
What are we doing flipping houses? If you're wholesaling right now and you're watching this, we got to step our game up, boys. We got to step our game up. We got to get to your level, dude.
No.
This is why I'm running all over damn town looking for apartment deals.
Yeah, keep looking for them. We'll partner up on those bad boys.
Yeah, let's go. All right, listen, if you guys got some value out of this, make sure you smash the like button, drop a comment down below, and go follow Jerome. What's your
YouTube,
socials?
Jerome Maldonado. And if you go on Instagram, it's Jerome Maldonado and the number 1. But everywhere else is Jerome Maldonado. It'll be in the base title of YouTube.
Yeah, I'll put it down in the description down below. But this guy's the real deal. If you ever have an opportunity to hang out with him, I highly recommend you take it. He's one of my multifamily mentors and just an overall good dude. So that's all we have for you this time. If you got some value, you know what to do. And until next time, we're out of here. Take care. Comb your hair. Peace.